It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains.
In a recent open letter to prominent Black hip-hop artists, veterans of the Black Panther Party argue that in the midst of a virus that disproportionately kills Black people and pervasive racist state terror, it is essential that artists and activists foster greater continuity between past and present generations of Black resistance. They write, "Much of our history in our people's struggle has been kept away from you and seemingly unavailable to your generation as you reinvent what was done in the past. Our people's enemies haven't changed, circumstances and conditions have. History never repeats itself, but it damn sure can rhyme." To revisit the history of the BPP is to experience the rhyme of history. Yet, the refrain is not a pleasant one. Indeed, it would be difficult to argue that circumstances and material conditions have improved for Black people in the time since Black Lives Matter and Hands Up, Don't Shoot supplanted Black Power and Off the Pigs as ubiquitous rallying cries of Black struggle. It is a sad reality that the BPP 10-point platform and program is just as applicable today as it was when founders Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale co-authored it in 1966. Foreshadowing the abolitionist demand, it calls for an immediate end to police brutality and murder of Black people, as well as freedom for all Black men held in federal, state, county prisons and jails. Since that time, racist police violence has continued unabated, and the U.S. prison system has expanded exponentially. 2020 marked the anniversary of the persecution of the New York Panther 21, a collection of Black radicals falsely accused of plotting to carry out wanton acts of violence across New York City. The protracted battles that emerged around the 21's arrest and the trial, as well as the judiciary's exploitative imposition of bail, the carceral system's brutal treatment of them, and the struggle to defend the existence of Black radical organization, exposed the extent to which Black communities and the U.S. government were and are actively engaged in a form of asymmetrical combat. By re-examining the Panther 21, we can apprehend a dialectic of Black radicalism and racist state repression that exceeds the confines of legally sanctioned means of struggle.
The street gangs. There were numerous Black, white, Puerto Ricans, and Asian street organizations, i.e. gangs, in New York City during the 1950s. Among the more notorious Black street gangs of the era were the Chaplains, Bishops, Sinners, and Corsair Lords. Also, there was the equally violent Puerto Rican Dragons. All warred against each other and other gangs that crossed their paths. By the 1960s, the post-World War II heroin influx had taken its toll. Most of the New York street gangs faded away. Their youthful members had succumbed to drugs, either through death by overdose, or had ceased gang activities in order to pursue full-time criminal activities to feed their drug habit, or were in prison because of drug crime activities or youth gang assaults and killings. Lumumba Shakur, warlord of the Bishops, and Sekou Odinga, leader of the Sinners, were two such youths who had been sent to the reformatory for youth gang assaults. They graduated up through the gladiator prisons, Woodburn and Comstock, to mainline Attica.
While in prison, Lumumba's father, who was always part of the Black Liberation Movement, visited Lumumba to tell him he had converted to Islam, was joining his friend Malcolm X's Organization for Afro-American Unity, and was changing the family name to Shakur. This is Dr. Mutulu Shakur speaking about his adopted father, Sayyidine Abba Shakur.
I became a son of a man by Abdul Shakur, Saladin Abdul Shakur. And he was the father. Actually, I was 12. He was the father of Lumumba Shakur and Zaid Shakur.
When the Panthers reached the East Coast in 1968, Lumumba and Sekou were among the first youths to sign up. Lumumba opened the Harlem chapter of the Black Panther Party as its defense captain. Sekou opened the Queens chapter as a lieutenant and later transferred to Harlem to co-head it with his boyhood pal, Lumumba.
Power to the people, brother. Right on, power.
The chapter had established offices in Harlem, Brooklyn, and Queens. They held regular political education classes and had organized several survival pending revolution programs, including a free breakfast for children program, a liberation school, and a clothing distribution program. They also advocated for tenants' rights and led an anti-heroin campaign and participated in efforts to achieve community control over the police, who were seen not as a source of protection, but as an occupying army that forcibly confines Black people within a system of colonial domination.
You see, if it wasn't for the pigs, heroin wouldn't be saturated through the Black community. What they do, when the police make a big narcotic raid and he get like a kilo of heroin, he would turn in a pound of it, and then he puts the other pound that's left back in the community and let somebody sell it for him.
Alice Faye Williams was born January 10th, 1947 in Lumberton, North Carolina. In 1958, Alice, her mother, and her sister would move to the South Bronx in New York. The Shakur tribe would gain another member when Alice, who would change her name to Afeni, would marry Lumumba and join the Black Panther Party. When describing her journey to joining the New York Panthers, Afeni would talk about walking down Harlem's 125th Street and 7th Avenue.
It's always a rally. And it's got this history for oratory. Malcolm used to speak there. There's this little guy, and he had all these people standing beside him like it was a small army.
What really interested Afeni was the fact that the man was talking about what the community could do to stop the police from harassing them.
And it was really hitting. And after that, somehow I found out more about the person that was Bobby Seale.
The man was none other than chairman of the Black Panther Party, Bobby Seale.
And I found out more about the party from that. And I just kind of waited till the party came to New York. And I just joined.
New York Panthers were very special.
That is Gerald Lefcourt. He was one of the main lawyers who helped defend the New York Panthers during the Panther 21 case.
I mean, these were very, New York hip people. They sort of looked at, Oakland as, way out there. They're worried about whether the Panthers should associate with gays, while the New York Panthers are worrying about heat in people's apartments and sort of a nationalist approach. I only knew this because I was the courier between Oakland and New York with audio tapes.
I interviewed Gerald Lefcourt back in 2021. Here he is telling me about the very first case he represented the New York Panthers in.
The Panthers were organizing in the spring of '68 in New York. I went out to Brooklyn to represent these three Panthers who were charged with assaulting police officers and firemen. Defendants were brought into the courtroom. One of them was bleeding from his eye. All three of them were hurt. The cops that they were accused of assaulting and the firemen were laughing in the corner of the courtroom. Bail was set at $100,000 each. And it started. And that was the beginning. I became involved in just about every Panther case. Kunstler and I started out together in the Panther 21. By the way, that first Panther case with those three defendants, on the adjourned date for a preliminary hearing, Kunstler and I went to the courthouse together. There were 500 or more off-duty cops in regular street clothes. You could see the guns bulging through their shirts. It was summer. and they were demonstrating, and they were singing or chanting, "White tigers eat black panthers."
Wow.
This was amazing. They ran a gauntlet. Kunstler and I had to walk through to get into the courtroom, and they were cursing us and kicking us. This is in a courthouse. It was unbelievable. The venom between the Panthers and the police was astonishing. Mm. And so we got into the courtroom, and every seat in the courtroom was taken by one of these off-duty cops. The few Panthers who came to support the three who were going to be in the preliminary hearing couldn't even get in. And after about an hour, the cops outside the courtroom who were off duty beat up the Panthers who were waiting to try to get into the courtroom. It was like front page of the news for days. It was an amazing time. I remember, I guess John Lindsay was mayor, and he tried to arrange a meeting. He asked, Kunstler couldn't come. He asked his people asked if we could meet. And they had a circuitous route. We went to Brooklyn, then we went back to Manhattan. And after about a 45-minute car ride, we ended up in the top of a building in Manhattan in a big conference room. The entire police brass, myself, and the head of the New York Panthers at the time was Judon Ford. And there were some black police brass. And they said, we want the names of the cops who beat up the Panthers in the hallway. We're going to do whatever we have to do to make this right. And Judon Ford said, you don't understand. It's all of them.
Attacks increase on revolutionaries. The Panthers rolled eastward, establishing offices in each major northern ghetto. As they went about the community organizing these various programs, they were frequently confronted, attacked, or arrested by the police, and some were even killed during these encounters.
That's why when we confiscated the heroin last Friday, somebody from the Post and other news media said that we should have took that kilo of heroin and gave it to the police. We would have gave it to the police at 3 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, we would have been back in Harlem.